Well, it's so great to be home. I always feel like this is my home, even though I've been over in Sacramento for 14 years now. And, I'm especially glad to be here today because yesterday it was 108 degrees over in Sacramento. So it's really good to be here. When I do a talk, I like to anchor my talks in a basic spiritual principle, so I don't get too far off into the ethers. The spiritual principle that I'm working with today is that aliveness is your divine birthright. Aliveness is your divine birthright. It's that kind of aliveness that you have when you wake up in the morning and you know it's going to be a great day. It's that kind of aliveness you know when you understand and align yourself with God. In God, all things are possible. I'm not talking about a God in the sky, of course, because we're religious scientists. I'm talking about a set of spiritual principles that we can understand and that we can learn. And when we learn them and understand them and we feel that aliveness that is within us right now, we know that no person and no thing can stand in the way of our joy. No one and no thing can stand in the way of our success, no matter what you want to make that success look like for you. There's no one and no thing that can stand in your way of that deep connection that we want with the people in our inner circles. There's no one or thing that can stand in the way of you walking into a room, any room at all, of complete strangers, of people who don't look like you, don't sound like you, don't live like you, don't talk like you. Maybe you're walking into a room and you're black and they're white. Maybe you're walking into a room and you're gay and they're straight, or you're straight and they're gay. Maybe you're walking into a room in which people just you've never met them before. And when you walk into that room, they love you. They want you there. That's the kind of aliveness that I'm talking about. I have a great example of somebody who understood that they were alive. Just excuse me, my Madonna mic is having a problem here. I've had quite a morning. First of all, I broke your podium, then I broke a glass, and Joyce said, "Would you like some water?" I said, "Yeah, but you better bring it in a sippy cup because no telling what might happen here." So the story I have, I love golf. It's one of my passions. It's my passion. I love ministry. That's a passion. I love Donna. That's a passion. And golf is also one of my passions in life. And this is a story, if you are a golfer and you are a single and you go out onto a golf course, they won't let you make a tee time. They will always put you with a group that's already existing that doesn't yet have a foursome. And so there was a morning in which a guy about 20 years old called his dad and his grandfather, and he said, "You know what, let's just go out and have a golf date together and just catch up with each other." And so they went to the golf course, and they knew the policy, and they were fine with it. And so they're taking their practice swings on the first tee and waiting for their time to tee off. And here comes a cart down the trail onto the first tee box. And they were fine. They knew it was going to be another golfer that was going to be put with them. And so they watched this beautiful young woman get out of the cart. And so they said, they all shook hands, as we all do when we play golf together, and greeted each other. And she said, "Now, guys, look." She said, "I'm so happy to be playing golf with you. I'm looking forward to today. But I'm going to ask you something. Please don't teach me how to play golf." And, women, that the guys just can't help themselves sometimes. They got to help us, whether we want any help or not. And so she made that, and they had a great round. They played 18 holes, and everybody just had a great time together. And they got to the 18th hole, and she had about an 8-foot putt to sink. And she said, "You guys have been so fabulous. I'm going to tell you this." She said, "I will, the person who gives me the best advice as to how to sink this putt, I'll take you home for dinner tonight." That's the Sunday morning version of the story. But I want to come back, so. So the young guy says, "Well, I think if you hit it just below the cup, you're going to be fine." And the dad says, "I think if you hit it just above the cup, you're going to be fine." And the grandfather walks over, picks up the ball, and he says, "It's a gimme." He was alive. He was alive in that spirit. So that aliveness comes to us from an understanding of how spiritual principle works. Whether we study it or some people are just lucky enough to know it. They just kind of get it in life. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So what we want to begin to do is to know that that aliveness is in us. And then when we have to ask ourselves the question, well, why is it that sometimes that aliveness is so fleeting for me? Sometimes, why is it that I feel I need to always protect myself? Why is it that sometimes I get caught with that not enoughism, that I'm not enough, good enough, don't have enough, aren't enough? Why does that happen? Well, it happens maybe for other reasons, but one major reason is because somebody who loved you very much tried to help you understand how to set external limits to keep yourself safe, to keep yourself socialized in this world. And sometimes when we talk about living in those from those external limits, where we can't go beyond that at all, we call that living in our egoic state. Now, the word ego has a lot of different definitions, but depending on what kind of spiritual background you come from, or what kind of psychological background you might have. I want to use the word ego today to mean simply this. It is the attachment to things in form. It's not things in form at all. It's the attachment to what things need to look like. That's the ego state, the attachment to what things need to look like. For instance, a dancer needs to look like this. A violin should only play this kind of music. Funerals should look like this. Ego is attachment to form, attachment to what things need to look like. And the problem with form is it's always transitory and conditional. Form is always transitory and conditional, and it can go away when you least expect it. Divorces happen, pink slips happen, diagnoses happen, and when those things happen in our life, often when we least expect it, when those things happen in our life, our sense of peace goes away. Our sense of joy and success begins to become diminished. And then we fall in love. We find a cure for what ails us. We get a better job in our life, and we become happy again, but we become happy connected to what that form looks like at any given time in our life, a very fragile sense of peace. Well, a man I admire very much, Eckhart Tolle. Some of you have read his books, one of which is A New Earth. And in A New Earth, he says what we need to begin to do in our spiritual work is have less dependence on ego, attachment to what things look like, and more attachment on spirit. Less attachment on form and less attachment, more attachment on spirit and less attachment on form. Well, one way to do that, I think, is to begin to get, and we metaphysicians have to be very vigilant about this, because we've spent years trying to make sure our mind is in good order, and we need to. But now I want to take us a little deeper. I want us to get in touch with our heart, leaving our head and getting more in touch with our heart. Because when we can get in touch with our heart, we're not so concerned about what form looks like. In our church, we have a little hopscotch form. I had it in our old church. And one day I was going back to my office past it, and I saw 3 little girls about 5 years old and a little boy about 5 years old also playing hopscotch. And they were squealing with delight. They were having that kind of connection with each other that is just so precious. You've all felt it in your own children, and you've seen it in your own life, whether you were a kid or an adult, that kind of deep connection that happens when you're learning to do something well and you're having fun doing it. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this man come by and grab that little boy and say, "Son, dudes don't play hopscotch." Did he love that little boy? With all of his heart, he loved that little boy. But what he was trying to do was to teach him an external limit so he could be a man in this kind of world. If he could have let go of the attachment to what the form needed to look like for him and go strictly to his heart, he could have seen how much fun that little boy was having. He could have seen how connected he was to those little girls, and he would have gone right on by. He would have clapped for his son playing hopscotch. This is serious business, this attachment to what things need to look like. Eckhart Tolle, in his book, invites us to look at this concept of a pain body. Because how it happened to that little boy at that moment is he got a pain body inserted into his little heart. And a pain body is simply that energy field in which painful things that have happened to you got stored in your heart immediately. For instance, I asked some friends of mine to help me think of some pain body things that were happening in their life and in my life. And one woman said, the day that I found out my father wasn't my father. Another one said, I got fired from a job. Another one said, my mother did not believe that I was molested. Another one said, I was too fat, and I was always continually told I was too fat. Another one said, I was bullied at school. My own is, I got invited to the prom. Now, for a lot of people, that's not a pain body. That's an pain body for me. I didn't want to get in that dress and go to the prom, so it went in my little pain body. I had to go, too. I have pictures and everything. Another one was that I did not get invited to the prom. And another one is I stayed too long in an abusive relationship. Now, all of these go into our pain body. And all of us have similar ones. And they just go in there and they stay. And then everywhere we go, these come with us. You want to go on a date with me tonight? Because these go on our dates. These go to the PTA. These go to bed with us. These watch TV with us. These come to church this morning with us. These go everywhere. These go to that job interview that you have coming up. These go with us. Everywhere we go, these pain bodies go with us, and they're in our heart. Jesus says in Matthew 15, everything that comes out of your mouth comes from your heart. Everything that comes out of your mouth, not some things, not most things, not a lot of things, but everything that comes out of our heart comes from our mouth. That we can do all of the affirmations and metaphorically wash our mouth out with soap 100 times a day, and we should be. I don't want you to go away thinking I don't believe in affirmations, because I do. I want you to go away and say some Sacramento woman from Sacramento came and said we don't have to do affirmations anymore. We just have to look into our heart. That's not true. I do my affirmations every day. They're powerful. But I want to take us deeper today so that we have to do less affirmations if we're willing to look inside and see what is in our heart. You know, each one of us have had an experience of being with somebody that we're very close to. Somebody we know that they love us and we love them, and we're clear about that. And we feel safe with them. And then one day, something mean-spirited comes out of your mouth or their mouth or somebody's mouth, and one of you say, whoa, I don't know where that came from. And Jesus says, I know where it came from. It came from your heart. Our work is to know that it doesn't come from the chamber of heart where our love is, but it comes from the chamber of heart where our pain body is. Solomon, who is from our Jewish ancestry and who was thought of as the smartest man in all the world. He wrote the entire book of Ecclesiastes and most of the Proverbs. He was the go-to guy. If there was something wrong in your life, whether it was in your personal family life, you went to Solomon. If it was in your community life, you went to Solomon. If there was something wrong with your marriage, you went there. If something wrong with your teenager, you went to Solomon and you asked him what to do. If something was wrong in your church, you went to Solomon and you asked him what to do. Solomon knew everything. And Solomon, who in one of the Proverbs said this: if you don't read anything else I write, if you don't hear anything else I say, hear this. Guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of your life. Guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of all of your power. Now, when I say guard it, he wasn't talking about putting up yet one more barrier between you and the world. He wasn't talking about closing your heart. He wasn't talking about giving somebody the cold shoulder. He was talking about knowing what goes in your heart and what comes out of your heart, being mindful of what goes in your heart and what goes out of your heart. Well, that's great, but has anybody taught you how to be mindful about what goes in your heart and out of your heart? I don't believe anybody's taught me. So I had to relearn it. And that's basically why we come to church, is to relearn that which we already know. I have a colleague who says that every night he goes into the bedroom of his 10-year-old boy and he lays down with him and he says, honey, how is your heart today? And he gives him a chance to answer. And he says, are you mad at anybody today? And he's still. And he gives the boy a chance to answer. He said, did anybody bully you at school today? And he gives a chance to answer. Do you have any secrets that you're carrying? And he gives the boy a chance to answer. See, just like our affirmation said this morning, every single time that we ask the divine and we're willing to be still, and this father was the place of the divine for that 10-year-old boy. He not only asked him, but he gave him the time to be still. We need to begin to ask ourselves that question. But here's the problem. When we ask the divine will always tell us. And it may not be something we want to hear all the time. But in order to clear our heart, we got to do that. I have a colleague who was a brand new minister. He was only in his church about maybe 3 months. And a woman called and said, you know, we've heard you speak. We think you're really smart, and our marriage is we're going to get a divorce, but we're going to give you one last chance. So he gave him an appointment, and they came in, and the guy said he was as nervous as he was terribly nervous because he was just brand new. And so he says to the woman, well, tell me a little bit about what the problem is. And she said, oh, I can cut to the chase. I know exactly what the problem is. I'm angry. I'm angry at my husband for no reason. I'm angry at my kids for no reason. She said, well, he said, there must be a reason. Why are you so angry in general? She said, well, I was molested when I was a child. And then I kept bringing more men into my life that kept remolesting me, and it just left me angry, an angry person. He said, I see. He said, do you have a calendar in your purse? She said, well, maybe on your iPhone. Do you have a calendar on your iPhone? She said, yeah. So she picks out her iPhone, and he said, put it to the calendar section. And she did. And he said, now I want you to pick out a date by which you are willing to let all of the molesters go in your life. Just let them go. Not tell the story anymore. Not ruminate on it anymore. What's that date? And she got furious. And she said, I came here for compassion. I came here for a spiritual mind treatment. I didn't come here for this. See, he said, I'm giving you what will help you. And that's what the divine is saying to us all of the time. I am giving you what will help you. I want to end this with inviting you to just close your eyes for a moment, if you will. Is everything okay in your heart? Are you mad at anybody? Are you waiting for somebody else to apologize to you? Are you having imaginary and extended conversations with somebody? In the last week, have you secretly celebrated somebody else's failure? Is there a question in your heart that you hope nobody ever asks you? Now, if you'll just repeat after me, divine wisdom, teach me to know what's in my heart, for it is the wellspring of my power. Let's do it one more time. Divine wisdom, teach me to know what's in my heart, for it is the wellspring of my power. Thank you. God bless you. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there is only one power on the planet. It's the power of love. It's the most sacred heart. It's the heart that we tap into. It's the heart that just beams out through our smiles, through our eyes. It beams out through our spiritual ears. It's just beaming all the time, that sacred heart that is within us. It is the sacred heart that knows the answer to all things. It knows the answer to homelessness, so I am just opening myself to the answer for homelessness this day. It knows the answer to racism, so I open my heart to knowing the answer to racism this day. It knows the answer to loneliness for elders, so I open my heart to the answer. For there is only one power. And I believe in that power and nothing else. It is the power for good. I give thanks for this. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.